I wake up on the floor. The first thing I notice is the cold. The wood beneath me is damp, almost slimy, the kind of wetness that has seeped deep into its grain over years, maybe decades. It stinks of mildew and something else, something sharper, more acidic. I inhale too deeply and gag. I try to sit up, but my arms don't respond the way they should. There's a tightness around my wrists. I twist them experimentally, and the rough scrape of rope burns against my skin. My ankles are the same, bound, but not expertly. The knots are tight, but they bite into my flesh unevenly, as though they were tied in a hurry. I force myself to breathe, slow and measured. Panic is a noose, I can feel it tightening around my ribs. I blink, trying to adjust to the darkness. My vision is slow to come back, the edges blurred as if I've been drugged. The air is thick, and the lack of light presses in like a weight. I roll onto my side, my body aching from lying in one position too long. A small amount of light flickers in the distance, barely enough to outline the warped wooden walls around me. It's a house. Or at least, it used to be. The walls sag inward, the ceiling looks brittle, ready to collapse under the weight of years. There are no windows that I can see, and the only door is barely visible in the far corner. It looks heavy, reinforced with old, rusting bolts. And then I see him. A figure stands in the doorway, watching me. The candlelight flickers, catching the shape of a skull. It takes me a second to process what I'm seeing, a mask, a hollowed-out grin carved into bone, its empty socket staring straight through me. His body is draped in a cloak, the tattered fabric pooling around his feet, blending with the dark. He doesn't move, doesn't speak, but I feel something from him, an expectation. My breath comes too fast, too shallow. My mind races, scrambling for memories. How did I get here? I remember locking my apartment door. I remember the click of the deadbolt sliding into place, the hum of the streetlights outside. Then, nothing. Just a blank space where time should be. The masked figure tilts his head slightly, as if amused by my confusion. He takes a step closer. I try to shift away, but my limbs are weak. My body feels wrong, like I haven't moved in days. He stops just before the candlelight touches him, still hidden in the shadows. And then he begins to speak. Not to me. To something else. The words are thick, layered, and wrong. They roll from his lips like prayers, but the language is foreign, guttural, full of harsh syllables that scrape against the air. My skin prickles with an instinctive revulsion. I don't understand what he's saying, but my body does. It recognizes ritual. His hands move as he speaks. Slow, deliberate gestures, each one accompanied by a shift in the room's atmosphere. The candle flickers violently, stretching its shadows across the walls. I feel something behind me, something I can't see, something pressing against my spine, whispering just beneath the edge of my hearing. I squeeze my eyes shut. It's not real. I repeat it like a mantra. It's not real. The whispers don't stop. He steps forward again, his boots scraping against the rotten wood. I force myself to look at him, but my gaze is drawn past the mask, to his hands. They're wrong. At first glance, they seem normal, pale skin stretched tight over long fingers. But the longer I look, the more I notice the imperfections. The joints are too prominent, the knuckles sharper than they should be. His fingers are too long, like they've been stretched. And his nails, they're the color of old bone, cracked and splintered at the tips. I don't realize I'm holding my breath until I start to feel lightheaded. He speaks again. This time, I hear something I recognize. My name. I don't know how he knows it, but the way he says it makes me feel hollow. Like something inside me has been taken, scooped out without me noticing. Then, finally, he moves closer. I scramble backward instinctively, ignoring the burn of the ropes. My body is sluggish, but my panic fuels me, makes me fight harder against the restraints. My wrists are slick with sweat, the rope digging deep enough to break skin. Then the air shifts. I freeze. It's subtle, like the moment before a storm hits. The candle's flame flattens, like something has inhaled all the air from the room. The space around me tightens. I feel watched. Not by him. By something bigger. My heartbeat pounds in my ears. I don't know how, but I can feel it, something behind me, beneath me, pressed against the floorboards, lurking just beyond the threshold of sight. His hands lift again, slow and precise. The words spill from his mouth, curling through the air like smoke. The candlelight dims, the shadows deepen. The floor beneath me moves. I feel it shift, a subtle, stomach-turning sensation, like something shifting just beneath the surface. I suck in a sharp breath. And then, for the first time, he speaks in English. You were chosen. His voice is hoarse, raw, like vocal cords rubbed against stone. Purification begins at first light. I want to scream. I want to demand answers, but my throat is tight, and the air is thick with something I don't understand. Then he reaches into his cloak and pulls out a knife. I don't struggle as much as I should when he steps forward. Because I realize something terrible. It's not the first time this has happened to me. I've been here before. I don't remember being here before. But my body does. The moment his knife glints in the candlelight, something deep in my bones reacts, a sickening déjà vu that twists my stomach. This has happened before. Maybe not just once. Maybe over and over again. The man in the skull mask kneels beside me, the knife resting in his palm, as if he's waiting for something. Maybe for me to beg. To plead. To ask why. I won't give him that satisfaction. I pull at the ropes again, feeling them scrape fresh wounds into my wrists. The knots loosen just enough for my skin to slip against the fibers, slick with sweat and blood. If I keep twisting, keep pulling, I might. The blade presses against my forearm. Not enough to cut. Not yet. Just enough to let me feel the cold steel against my skin. A reminder that he's in control. He speaks again, and this time, I understand part of it. Not because it's in English. Because the words are carved into my mind. Sacrifice cleanses the soul. Suffering brings renewal. I don't know how I know these words, but they settle over me like a weight, like something I once believed in. No. That's not possible. This is a lie. A manipulation. He's brainwashing me, trying to twist my thoughts into something else. I won't let him. The blade drags down my arm, slow and deliberate. A warning. A threat. A promise. I clench my jaw, refusing to make a sound. He tilts his head, as if studying me. Then he says something new. Something worse. You are not the first. The words send a cold bolt of terror through me. I don't know why, but I feel their truth down to my marrow. I am not the first. And I will not be the last. My breathing is too loud in the silence. The only other sound is the faint crackling of the candle. I feel like I'm suffocating under the weight of something unseen, something just beyond the edges of my vision. And then, he moves. I don't see it. I feel it. A shift in the air, a break in the candlelight's flickering. His hand moves to my face, his fingers brushing against my temple. The touch is strangely gentle, almost reverent. And in that moment, I remember. Not everything. Not yet. But flashes, fragments. Visions of myself, bound just like this. Of him, whispering the same words. Of others before me. Their faces blurred, their voices swallowed by time, but I remember them. And worse, I remember what happens next. The blade cuts into my arm. Not deep, but precise. A small wound, barely enough to draw blood, but the pain is sharp and immediate. But I don't scream. Because I remember. It's not the knife that should scare me. It's what happens after. The blood seeps down my skin, hot against the cold air. And then the floor moves again. This time, it's not subtle. Something underneath me shifts, a slow, deliberate heaving, as if the house itself is breathing. The wooden planks creak, the air thickens, and I hear it. A sound. Not human. Not even close. A wet, slithering noise, like something dragging itself closer. My throat goes dry. The masked man stands, his head tilting slightly. He isn't afraid. He's waiting. I twist my wrists harder, ignoring the searing pain as the ropes tighten. I have to get out of here. Then, from beneath the floorboards. A whisper. My entire body locks up. It's not his voice. It's not coming from him at all. It's coming from underneath me. A voice, thin and fragile, slips through the cracks in the wood, curling into my ears like smoke. Help us. My pulse stutters. He won't stop. I squeeze my eyes shut. I can't be hearing this. I'm hallucinating. I'm panicking. This can't be. The floor bulges. A sick, pulsing movement beneath my spine, as if something inside the wood is trying to push its way out. I choke on my breath. My fingers keep pulling at the ropes, tearing open my skin. The masked man finally speaks. You must be made whole. The candlelight flickers. I hear a crack, not from the wood, but from inside my own head. And suddenly, I remember more. Not just flashes. Not just glimpses. Everything. And I wish I hadn't. Because the masked man. He isn't my captor. He's my teacher. And the thing beneath me? I put it there. The knowledge crashes into me like a freight train, leaving me gasping for air. The words, the symbols, the whispers in the dark, they were never meant to hurt me. They were meant to prepare me. Because I've been here before. And I chose to forget. I was never a prisoner. I was one of them. And now, the time has come to remember why. The weight of the memories crushes me. They don't come back all at once. They don't need to. The pieces slide into place on their own, fitting together like a puzzle made of flesh and bone. I chose this. I remember standing where he stands now, wearing the mask, speaking the words. I remember kneeling beside others, people who struggled, people who begged, and carving the same symbols into their skin. I remember pulling the blade across their throats. The realization makes me want to scream, to thrash against the ropes until my wrists snap. But deep inside, beneath the horror and denial, something calmer stirs. Something that is not afraid. The masked man sees it. He watches me, his body still as stone, the candlelight flickering over the smooth, empty sockets of his skull mask. He knew this would happen. He knew I would remember. That's why he didn't stop me from struggling. Why he let me pull at the ropes, fight against my own restraints. This was never about escape. It was about acceptance. The thing beneath me shifts again, pressing against the wood with wet insistence. A sound rises from the floorboards, not words this time, not even whispers. It's laughter. Thin, breathless, broken. I squeeze my eyes shut, my stomach twisting violently. The laughter is familiar. Because I have heard it before. Because I have laughed like that before. The knowledge sinks its claws deeper. I can't fight it anymore. I don't know how many times I've been here. I don't know how many cycles I've gone through, how many times I've been brought back, only to forget, to wake up lost and confused, fighting against the truth of who I really am. But now, it's different. This time, I remember. I feel my body relax against the ropes. The man in the mask notices. He tilts his head, stepping closer, knife still resting in his palm. "Now you understand." I don't reply. I can't. The words wouldn't mean anything anyway. The truth is something deeper than language. Something that hums beneath my skin, waiting to be recognized. I hear the laughter again, fading into slow, labored breaths. A single phrase rises from beneath the floorboards, spoken so softly it could almost be mistaken for a sigh. "Welcome back." A shudder rolls through my body, but this time, it's not from fear. I know what's beneath me now. Not a creature. Not a monster. It's me. Or at least, it was. A part of me, something I left behind. Something I buried. And now, I'm meant to take it back. The masked man kneels beside me again. Slowly, he presses the blade against my palm, curling my fingers around the handle. He doesn't force me to take it. He lets me choose. And this time, I do. The second my fingers close around the hilt, the room changes. The air thickens, becoming heavy and electric, humming with unseen energy. The candle's flame stretches impossibly high before extinguishing altogether, swallowing us in darkness. But I don't need the light anymore. I see everything. I see the bones buried beneath the floor, wrapped in decayed cloth and scripture written in blood. I see the faces of those who came before me, their features blurred, their voices rising and falling in prayer. I see the house for what it truly is, not a prison, not a ruin, but something alive, something vast and endless, its walls stretching beyond the limits of time and memory. And I see myself. Not as I am now, bound and trembling. But as I was before. As I was meant to be. I lift the blade. The ropes around my wrists and ankles loosen on their own. Not because I fought them. Because I'm ready. I rise to my feet, my legs unsteady but strong enough to hold me. The masked man watches, silent and patient. He has done his part. Now, the rest is up to me. The whispers return. No longer pleading. No longer afraid. They chant my name. I step forward, the knife warm in my grip. Beneath me, the floorboards pulse one last time. And then, they begin to open. The floorboards split beneath me with a deep, splintering groan, like ribs cracking open. Something waits beneath. I don't move at first. I can't. My body wants to recoil, to pull away from whatever lies below, but my mind, the part of me that remembers, doesn't let me. The masked man watches, standing just outside the edges of the growing hole. His skull face is empty, expectant. Waiting. This is the moment. The choice. And I already know what I'm going to do. Slowly, I kneel at the edge of the opening. The candle has long since died, but I can still see, not with my eyes, but with something deeper. The darkness isn't empty. It's moving, writhing, something thick and wet shifting just out of sight. A shape rises. No. A body. At first, I think it's someone else, another prisoner, another victim, but as it emerges, I understand. It's me. Or at least, what I was before. The figure that rises from the pit is not flesh. It's something raw, unfinished, a thing caught between forms. Skin peels and strips over muscle that shudders and reforms, ribs bending inward, fingers too long, too many, splitting and fusing like liquid. But the face. The face is mine. My reflection stares up at me with sunken, hungry eyes. My own mouth opens, lips cracked and wet, and speaks. It took you long enough. The voice is my own. The knife in my grip feels impossibly heavy. I don't remember lifting it, but I do. My arms shake, my fingers tightening around the hilt, not in fear, but in recognition. This is how it always ends. And how it always begins again. I force myself to speak, my voice hoarse, cracked. What am I? The thing in the pit tilts its head, my head, mocking. You already know. The memories hit all at once. Not in pieces. Not in fragments. Everything. I remember the first time I stood in this house. Not as a prisoner, but as a disciple. I remember learning the rites. I remember choosing to forget. Because that's the cycle. That's the way of the prophet. To become, one must first be broken. To ascend, one must first suffer. And I have. Again. And again. And again. I grip the knife harder. My reflection in the pit watches, smiling with my own lips. Waiting for me to finish it. I lift the blade. And I plunge it down. The knife sinks deep, not into flesh, but into something softer, wetter. My own body, my other self, doesn't resist. It welcomes the blade, pulling me closer as the wound yawns open, dragging me down, down, down. I don't struggle. This is what I was meant to do. Pain blossoms, but it's different. Not like a wound. Not like dying. It's shedding. It's rebirth. I am not leaving this place. I am becoming it. The last thing I hear before the darkness swallows me whole is the sound of my own voice laughing. Not in fear. Not in madness. But in understanding. The knife sinks into my other self, but there is no resistance, only the sensation of something parting, something yielding. Then, it pulls me down. I don't fall. I sink. The moment I touch the thing in the pit, the thing that was me, that is me, that will always be me, the world shatters. I don't mean the house. Not the walls, not the floor, not the candlelit room. Everything. The weight of my memories, the weight of my choices, the weight of what I have always been comes crashing down, and suddenly, I am both selves at once. The one who fights and the one who welcomes. The one who forgets and the one who remembers. The knife is still in my hand, but I don't know which version of me is holding it anymore. Maybe both. Maybe neither. I feel my other self wrap around me, folding into me, absorbing me as I absorb it. Our bodies press together, and for a single moment, I am trapped between the two, the disciple and the sacrifice. And then, I wake up. I open my eyes. I am lying on the floor, staring at the ceiling. The wood above me is warped and blackened with time, the boards shifting ever so slightly as if breathing. The candle is still burning beside me. The house is whole again. The masked man stands at my side. Silent. Watching. Waiting. I sit up. The motion is too smooth, too natural, my body doesn't ache, my muscles don't protest. The ropes that bound me are gone, but I don't remember them being untied. I don't need them anymore. Because I am not the same. I look down at my arms, at my hands. The cuts are gone. The bruises are gone. But something new is there. Lines. Words. Carved into my skin, not wounds, but scripture. It takes me a moment to realize that I can read them now. The cycle continues. The vessel is reborn. The words stir something deep inside me. I have seen them before. I have written them before. I have spoken them before. And now, I will speak them again. The masked man tilts his head slightly, as if sensing the shift within me. He doesn't need to ask if I understand. He already knows. I remember everything. This house, this ritual, this purpose, it has always been mine. The forgetting was necessary. The suffering was necessary. Only through breaking myself apart could I become whole again. The masked man kneels before me, and I know what I must do. I reach up, my hand steady, and take the skull mask from his face. He does not resist. As I lift it away, the face beneath is exactly as I expect. It is me. It has always been me. The realization does not frighten me. It only confirms what I have known all along. I rise to my feet, feeling the weight of the mask in my hands. It is light. It belongs to me now. I turn toward the doorway, where the shadows are deepest, where the house stretches beyond sight. I step forward. The masked man, the one I was before, does not follow. He does not need to. His purpose is complete. Mine is just beginning. I step into the darkness. And the house welcomes me home.